and she was quite a sight. It's Pippi Longstockings, hey ho ho ha yee ha ho. It's Pippi Longstockings, there's no one like her. Happy as can be, diddle diddle Pippi tells you stories. You just wait and see, tra la la la, she's quite a girl.
Pippi Longstocking was originally introduced in a series of books in 1945 by Swedish author Astrid Lindgren. They were then translated into English in 1971. The stories were then adapted into a movie in 1949, and several other Pippi Longstocking movies followed after. There were multiple TV series that were created in Swedish that were based off the books in the 60s, and the storybook episode that was aired in 1961, in which Shirley Temple played the role of the beloved Pippi Longstocking. The Adventures of Pippi Longstocking was published as a children's book originally. Here, we had a little girl doing the unimaginable. She was free from all parental figures and did as she pleased, which is why her stories attracted such a young audience. Pippi Longstocking is the main character in a series of books by Swedish author Astrid Lindgren. Her stories are based on a 9-year-old girl named Pippi Lotta, Delicatessa, Window Shade, Macromint, Ephraim's daughter, Longstocking. But her friends call her Pippi Longstocking, whom is unlike any other 9-year-old little girl you have ever met. She is wise beyond her age and has superhuman strength. She lives in a small village in Sweden in her house, Via Viacula, with her pet monkey, Mr. Nelson, and her horse, Little Old Man. Her father, Captain Longstocking, is always away due to the fact that he spends his days and nights sailing the ocean on his ship, Hoptoad. Pippi lived alongside her father on the sea until one day he fell overboard. She now lives alone with no parental supervision, waiting on the return of her father, whom she believed was rescued and in an island where he had been made a king of the natives. But meanwhile, Pippi awaits her father's arrival. She is faced with many challenges and obstacles in this village, as a direct result of her being so unique and unlike anything or anyone else around. Pippi's adventures begin on land when she moves into the Via Villacula in a small village in Sweden. It is there that she meets the two children living next door, Tommy and Annika. The two kids are intrigued when they hear from Miss Priscillius about the strange little girl that has moved into the abandoned Villa Villacula. Once they meet Pippi, they become inseparable and embark on numerous adventures around the town. Meeting Tommy and Annika is of importance in the story, as they are the first residents of this little village that actually accept Pippi for who she is. It is interesting enough how the kids are more open to how unique Pippi was, unlike the adults whom are later introduced in the story. This demonstrates how children are not born with the concept of hate. It is society that feeds their own views onto them. Another major shift for Pippi is when Miss Priscillius refuses to accept the idea of such a young little girl living alone. She feels that Pippi is lying about her father being a king in a faraway place, and that he would eventually return. As a result, she tries to involve the village police to assist her in removing Pippi from the home. What they do not expect is that Pippi is a very strong girl and fail miserably. This appears to be the first time that Pippi is let down by someone who feels should be there to help and protect her, such as the policeman. There is a scene in which Pippi agrees to let the policemen down, as she had thrown them on the roof with her strength, if they promised that they would stop trying to take her away, and so they did. Once Pippi keeps her end of the bargain and brings them down, they immediately begin to take her away. It is then that Pippi says, "How can you trust anyone if you can trust a policeman?" This demonstrates the trust that children have and whom they are told to trust. That is until such trust is broken. It is then that the innocence of the child begins to deteriorate, when society fails its youth. Although Pippi does not appear to have any money, she is actually very well off. Pippi's father had left her a suitcase full with gold coins that were meant for her to use until his return. These gold coins end up costing her trouble when the two village thieves find this information out. They see Pippi as an easy target due to the fact that she comes off as naive and vulnerable. They see this as an opportunity to gain easy money. Again, they are unaware of her supernatural strength and use the pity card to get away. Surprisingly enough, Pippi still tries to give them some gold coins, but they had run out of the house so fast that they fail to see this nice gesture. Towards the end of the movie version, Pippi tells her father, as he tries to throw another suitcase with gold coins, that she would rather not have any more money, that it causes more harm than good. In all, this is another great lesson for children. It demonstrates that monetary value is not important. Pippi has no attachment to the gold coins as she easily shares her riches with the village children and those around her. She throws it around as if it had no value, which to her it did not. Her freedom and individuality had more value in her eyes. Pippi Longstocking is not your average protagonist. Although her father is her hero, Pippi actually becomes the hero of this town. In the beginning of the story, she is looked down on by the adults because they consider her too different and out of the normal to what the people of this village are accustomed to. With time, it is just that very difference that opens up the hearts from everyone whom she comes in contact with. There are so many elements to the story that children can gain from. The loudest message that children can take from this tale is feeling empowered regardless of one's gender. Everyone around placed so much value on appearances and behavior that they actually felt to give Pippi the opportunity to show who she really was. They consider her to be, too poor and too uneducated and definitely too outspoken. This is during a time when girls were expected to behave and act a certain way. However, Pippi walked to the beat of her own drum and was exceptional at it. There is one scene in which Pippi used two brushes as skates to clean her floor. Anika says how she has never seen anything like that before. And Pippi's response to this is actually quite interesting. She says, "Of course not. They're all stupid in school. They are all learning multiplications, but they cannot figure anything else that's smart." Within this phrase hides a lot of truth. Nowadays, we feel that we are filled with knowledge because we have such easy access to information via social media. The reality is, much of that knowledge is empty knowledge since we do not end up using this knowledge in a productive way. What good is knowledge if it is never used? And I think that's actually a great point that Pippi brings to the table because nowadays we are able to hide behind our phones, behind our computers, and portray to the world this false image of being educated and living this life that we really don't, that we actually reject those that are actually educated for the simple reason that they do not fit what we think someone educated should look like. I strongly believe that it is important to allow children to be free of any expectations. Much like Pippi, she was never expected to act or behave in a manner that is considered ladylike, but rather to act on what she believes is the correct thing to do. There is a scene in which Pippi is invited to a tea party and she is actually afraid to go because she feels that she does not know how to behave ladylike. In the scene she acts just as what she is, a child. She is impatient to get her dessert and even picks her nose. Tommy and Anika's mother tells her that that is not how fine ladies should behave, and her response is, "How do fine ladies pick their nose?" To her, it's very hard to wrap her head around the concept of her being restricted to do what she feels like doing, which in this case, it's picking her nose. The next scene is of her standing up to some boys that were bullying a boy that was much smaller than her. She uses her super strength to put those boys in their place. Although this behavior is not considered very ladylike, she knows that standing up to those boys is the correct thing to do. And so she does. And I think that's something great that children need to learn nowadays is that they should not hold back to who they are, out of being afraid that they're going to be bullied or judged in school. And I feel that Pippi is a great representation of doing what you want and not being afraid to show who you really are. Although there is no magical fairy godmother in this story, it is easy to see that Pippi's mother, whom passed away, is in fact her guardian angel. Throughout the movies and books, we see how Pippi repeatedly talks to her mother and asks for guidance. Although she appears to be alone to those around her, to her it is clear that her mother watches and will always continue to watch over her. We also see a reference to not ever wanting to grow up, as Pippi tells her mother that she doesn't ever want to grow up as she likes things just the way they are. I believe such perspective is a result of the negative images that the adults in the village display towards her. It is the children that are more acceptive of her, and it's just mental. Interesting enough, this is a fairly close reference to the view of Peter Pan. that idea of staying a child forever and never transitioning into adulthood. So I find that very interesting. Although Pippi is a princess and her father is a king in a faraway land with extra supernatural strength, this is definitely not your typical fairy tale. We do see good versus evil play out in Pippi Longstocking, as the evil is represented through society and its unwillingness to accept change and differences. Most importantly, we see how a little girl saves a village with her different perspective in life and staying true to herself while doing so. In doing this, she also becomes stronger because she realizes that by staying true to who she is helping others around her. This Heron does not need anyone to save her. She is perfectly capable to finding her own way. She is quite the opposite of the ideal girl conventionally portrayed in children's literature during that time. It also communicates to the readers dreams of freedom, power, and independence. Stories like this empower young girls to never underestimate themselves and to fall victims to what society expects from them. It carries a strong message that being you is sufficient, that there will always be someone out there that will value you for who you are.
Got a house, an old and funny house, a monkey and a horse, a suitcase full of golden coins, and you will never, ever find another girl so strong and always generous and kind. Pippi's world is fun, dear little she makes kids happy.